What's going on, everybody? We are back with our second coach interview. It is week 2 right now. We are coming out with a coach that is coming hot. He is at the top of the rankings. We got the coach, one of the coaches of the Flutter Main Pirates. We got King Rock. King Rock, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hello there. Many of you may know me as one of the admins of DTT who has coached in basically every single season since season 2.5.
Yes.
Well,
And how long have you been playing Mons for now, King Rock?
about when COVID started, so I would have just turned, 22? So
Okay.
probably about 3 years, 3 or 4 years.
I feel like you took off as well. Like it felt like you were a real natural and grabbed onto it pretty quickly. Is that correct?
Yes, I like it so much better than ladder. I am terrible at ladder. I'm much better at just being a lot more creative when I know there's only a specific set of things I need to be prepared for.
Right. I feel that really big time. Completely agree with that. And I feel like on ladder, people are so unpredictable.
Yeah, and I actually watched a lot of your videos and a lot of KJ's videos when I first started to get really into it.
Well, thank
and
you.
That helped me a bit. What?
I didn't know you were gonna gas me up like this on my own channel. Thank you, Kira. Oh my gosh, making me drop a tear.
You had won the championship. Like, 'cause I joined ISL like with 3 weeks left in the season to season 2, so you had won the top division. So I looked at your games, and especially because you had complained about being sniped of Mega Scizor because you said you were gonna go like Mega Scizor Zapdos Rain, and I decided that sounded like a good plan for me to do that. Except I faded by using a Politoed instead.
Okay, did you build that team though? I feel like you did, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. That's so cool. Well, anyway, that's a different time. Right now, we are talking about DTT Season 6, baby. I'm looking at your team right now. I got the teams page up. King Rock, Cyber, Reg Scamp, Johnny, Gal, C-Diggs, and Sherry. Can you tell me a little bit more about your team and like what you and Cyber were thinking about while you're going down your draft?
All right, so we pretty much had decided that Cyber and I both kind of hate Gen 9, so neither of us wanted to really play it. So I took Black White and he took Ultra Sun Ultra Moon. Originally, before we switched from ADV to Black and White, he was going to do ADV and I was going to do Ultra Sun Ultra Moon, but once Black and White got added, that's my natural heir. Because I think I probably have the most experience with Gen 5 draft games in general here. Because Gao and I did one tournament. So our draft going in, we wanted to get someone. We wanted to get our budget on like one really big player to just guaranteed win every single. And the player we keyed in on was Scamp. Because Scamp is like the one good player that actually likes playing regional. And
that's very true.
It's something I didn't have to worry about, and I know Scamp is sort of notorious for drafting some kind of out there teams, and I find myself occasionally drafting teams that look pretty similar. So I wanted to see if the two of us together could make some very fun stuff.
And you guys are both 2-0 right now, right?
Yeah.
So it's working out so far.
2-0, and all 4 teams have made an appearance.
Beautiful. We love to see that. What about going on with like Reg and Johnny and everybody else?
All right, so the rest of the team, Reg was our token Little Cup player. He was one of about 3 players that I had pegged as good enough to carry the team by themselves and play every single week. It was basically between him, Bubba, and Peachy. And after Brum only went for 30, I knew that Primal and Poppy were just going to pay an exorbitant amount for Bubba, so I figured I could just get Reg way cheaper. And I was right. And so that was a good hedge to make. Because I am not very good at Little Cup myself, and I trust Reg. He was on my team last year, and we did a lot of good work. Yes. All right, so Johnny and C-Diggs are related to me. That would explain that. That would explain them being
a little bit of nepotism, right? A little bit of nepotism.
Yeah. Well, I actually paid for Johnny what I intended to. I had told Cyber pre-draft that I genuinely believed that Johnny was worth 20 and C-Diggs was worth like 10. And I truly believe that, and we got them both for around that amount.
And Johnny's 1-0 on the season, right?
And so is C-Diggs. They both are.
I mean, so it's all working out so far. So
yeah. Gal and Sherry were just people. I wanted to get people that were a little bit more, okay riding the bench, because there's only 5 weeks in the season, so every game kind of matters a lot more in like these sort of mini seasons. So I wanted people that were just sort of good team vibes and chemistry and good helping to build and bounce ideas off of. And Sherry I've worked with in ISL as a mod, and Gao he was on my team last year as a consultant. And taking Gao also meant that the only other person I knew who had Gen 5 draft experience was on my team.
Mm.
And I know Gao is good at Gen 5 because we both drafted Rain.
Yeah. And I've never seen anybody upset about teaming with Gao. I'm pretty sure Gao is just like always a positive for team chemistry. Basically just like whatever you have +1 for team chemistry. So, I mean, originally I think, looking back on it, when I did my draft analysis and PR, I think I gave your team a little bit lower on team chemistry than I really should have. Like, and I know you told me I should have bumped it up, but like, it's got familial bonds and and people that you've teamed with before and freaking Gao. So it should have been a 5. I just felt like I needed to give the Chicago Outlaws something because they've teamed together for like 8 billion seasons.
Well, Johnny has been on my team in every single season since 2.5, including 2 seasons where he didn't even sign up.
That is so funny.
He just appeared on my team after somebody just left the server.
We love that. We love that for Johnny. And when you're looking at the rest of the teams, who do you see as your biggest competition?
Probably Team Liquidation is obviously very scary.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're probably pretty clearly the best. I think the Emo Flamigos and Chicago Outlaws are both very good. The Lavender Town Gangars, they have some pretty solid players. They've been off to a pretty bad start. They've actually been very competitive both weeks, but they sort of just fell off. And Pony Island Pelipers, it's rather unfortunate that we faced them week 3. I would have rather faced them week 1 or 2 before they sort of fell into a hole and now have to sort of dig every single week is sort of a playoff game for them now. But I still think if they win out, I think they could probably still make the playoffs and make a run.
Yeah. And I don't think they've slotted in Clay a single time yet. Like, I think Clay probably wanted to take a backseat, but now that they're 0-2, maybe they'll be putting in like their best lineup.
Yeah, that is essentially what is the case.
Yeah. And LTG, I originally had at the bottom of my power rankings, and they are 0-2, but yeah, they have definitely like they put Team Liquidation. It was a 2-2 match this week. So
yeah, for lack of a better term, they are. No, I don't want to make. But you know what I'm referring to. They're not that. The audience knows what I'm referring to.
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I think of all the teams that have been in sort of like the lowest rated team going into the season, the Lavender Town Gangars have by far been the most impressive we've ever had.
Absolutely. My main thing for putting LTG at the bottom was the fact that one of the teams had to be on the bottom. I didn't think any of the teams looked bad. And like if Lavender Town Gangars ended up, making playoffs, I wouldn't have been utterly surprised either. It was just like there's 6 teams, I got to put somebody at the bottom.
Yeah. I think they were a very solid team. I just think some of the back half of their players are a little more questionable. I think maybe they could have drafted a bit more for some of the formats. I mean, they obviously have Relix, who's one of the best players there is, and A. Healy, who always somehow manages to win in old formats.
A. Healy always goes hard in whatever the old format is. He's like, I've never played this before.
Doesn't fully know the mechanics. I love him. He's the best.
We love A. Healy. We stand A. Healy bringing defog Scarm in Gen 4 and defogging away like light screen and not getting rid of pass. It's like And the hazard stayed on the field, and he was like, "What's going on?"
That was such a
King Rock, you just deleted Johnny
no.
from your team.
No,
Oh, sorry, Skip. Oh, okay. Whew.
Sorry, my monitor shut off on me.
Yeah, all good. All right, well, let's jump over to the drafts. Can you talk me through, just quick, like 1-2 minutes per team, unless you have a specific team that you want to talk more about. Can you talk me through your regional decks teams first?
All right, the regional dex teams are probably, in my opinion, my favorites of the ones we have drafted. I think that's the one where I think both of our teams are really, really solid. The first one is mostly because I think Meowscarada might just be the best mon in regional decks.
Mm-hmm.
It's so fast, its coverage is so good now, it just kills everything.
It's a real pain. Absolutely.
Yeah, Meowscarada and Annihilate is a core that I had in ISL before, and its downfall was that the water type was Gastrodon and the ground type was also Gastrodon, and we have a water and ground types that are not Gastrodon, so I'm already a bigger fan. This team one is just the quintessential Scamp team. There are so many weird Pokemon on this team that do things that you don't expect. And it's so very talented. Like Delphox and Lantern coming out of nowhere. Havelug got a kill last week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Team 2 was one where I sort of had to talk Scamp off the ledge because what Scamp wanted to draft in regional was a Latios Rain team, and we somehow got picked. The Latios was taking the pick before us in both drafts, and we were picked in this draft. So I really wanted to go with Great Tusk because it's probably the best mon in the format in terms of just consistency, game to game, hazard control.
Yeah.
The fact that it can sweep with basically any set because of rapid spin.
Yep.
And then we were bouncing ideas, and I think Meowscarada made it back to us a second, or it looked like it was going to make it back to us a second time. And I actually really wanted us to take it again. Because I know a lot of people were not willing to double up, but Meowscarada is the one mon in these things that I'm always willing to double up on because I just don't think it has any surefire counters besides Tinkaton, and even then, it just gets worn down. And so, if you'll notice, we have Tinkaton on this team, and that was partially to take that away from anyone else that might want to bring it against the Meowscarada team. But the idea we had, once he said he didn't want to go with a second Meowscarada team, my mind immediately went to Greninja, because the fast Protean mons just are so good at racking up kills.
Yeah.
And Greninja has the late game battle bond. And then mon we had noticed was particularly undervalued because most teams were focused on backs, and it was only 15 points, was Kyurem.
Absolutely.
So we wanted to take a Slowking Galar Kyurem team. And Greninja actually fits onto that team perfectly as a dark type. Also because it has Stab Blizzard. So we have double Stab Blizzard with Chilly Reception.
I did not even think of that. That's actually really fun.
And then we have two fairies, which I like to have fairies when one of them is Whimsicott, and arguably when one of them is one of them is like a steel fairy, because it can't be both in every single matchup. Whimsicott and Tinkaton both have huge support move pools. Whimsicott offers some good speed control. And then Charizard, just another really solid offensive mon. I don't think its defensive kit is there in regional decks, but offensive, it's still very solid. And lastly, we have Dunsparce because it learns rocks.
We love that. All right, jumping down to your Uber squad. How about this? What are we looking at here?
All right, so Ubers, we got the first pick, and it was pointed out to me that Mewtwo was allowed to Nasty Plot when it wasn't an ADL, and that was why we had to ban Mega Mewtwo X and Y, because we didn't want complex bans. But we thought Nasty Plot Mewtwo was okay. So we got the first pick, and we were gearing up to draft our Arceus of choice, because Jonathan won a title in ADL with Arceus Electric, which we banned. And so we wanted to have one Arceus team with some familiarity. But when Mewtwo got Nasty Plot and someone pointed out to me how broken that seemed, I told Jonathan we were taking Mewtwo.
Mm.
And so that sort of, we went that direction. And then when it came back to us for the first wheel, we wanted to get a second Uber and we wanted to get Tusk. Jonathan was very insistent on having Tusk because probably the best mon that's not in the Uber tier.
Mm-hmm.
And Scamp had pointed out Dialga Origin as a mon that fit the team with the points budget. And if you'll notice on both our Ubers teams, they both have the theme of 25-point Broken Mon, Origin Form, Sinnoh Legendary, and Fast Priority Mon. And
Yes.
that was not an accident.
Well, I loved your team too, because like it's like a sand team that you wouldn't expect. Like when you drafted Arceus Rock, I didn't initially expect sand, but like the sand with Arceus Rock is crazy.
Yes, Arceus Rock being able to set up with the Spadef boost and Sandstorm is insane. Giratina Origin just is a great like defensive partner for it. Mega Mawile. The one issue I have with that team is almost every mon on the team is item locked. Which that can get kind of dicey. But I do think that team is super duper strong. And the Terra Dracozolt, I think, might have been the only Terramon drafted that doesn't get Terra Blast. And I did want to explain the logic behind that was mostly that Dracozolt's one issue is it really struggles to break ground types. You have to go with like Nyx Draco Meteor. And if that's now Terra Dragon Draco Meteor, the ground types sort of go away very fast. And then the last mon was just Vikavolt for Webs, which won us week 1.
Very cool.
Then the first team, we definitely were a lot more in Jonathan's bag because in addition to Arceus Electric on his team that won the title, there was also a Great Tusk, a Palafin, and an Enamorous. So they all fit together very nicely on that team. And we also went with Terra Skeledirge because of its ability to 1v1 basically any physical attacker, and even in Ubers, with the right set.
Yeah, I love the cores on your team one. Like the Fire, Water, Grass, like that's actually a solid defensive backbone. And the Enamorous plus Dialga Origin is also looking strong. And then Great Tusk is just a Gloomon and Mewtwo sweeps, right?
Yep. And Meowstic is there because it learns dual screens and Prankster Thunderwave.
I feel like a lot of people did that with like, you know, we need to get one low point mon. Let's get a Prankster mon that you can just like slap on a team some weeks.
Yeah, I personally think for Ubers of the like Prankster mons, I do kind of think Meowstic is the best because of the screens. Because Illumise and Volbeat have Encore, but they don't have the screens like Meowstic does. And Meowstic also has Yawn and Thunderwave.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably going to come, you know, like maybe 1 week, but that 1 week it'll probably have like a really clutch matchup, right? And it can kind of stop a sweep as well, which is
no, it's a very solid mon. Rilix and I, we did a doubles, like a 2-person mini season in ADL, and we had a team that had Meowstic on it, and we brought it to exactly 1 game. Basically won us that game.
It does its job. That's exactly what we ask of it.
All right.
Little Cup. Do you have anything to say about the Little Cup teams? I know you're not like a huge Little Cup fan.
All right, so I have a list of things here. All right, because Reg is disappointed that you don't like our team 1 and feels that there are more than 2 win cons on this team. So I'm going to talk about that for a little bit. So this team was mostly made around the 2 win cons, as you've said, in Ponyta Galar and Tyrant. But I think the next 2, Sandshrew and Crabrawler, also have their share of matchups that they can win. Sandshrew pretty much gets all the moves Grillbird does, in addition to getting spikes and knockoff. Its stats are just worse, and Crabrawler is just a fast fighting type. And with mons that can pretty easily guarantee setup turns in some sequences like Cottony and Varum. It is a lot more matchup dependent Team 2, but when it has a good matchup, it's really tough to stop.
Yeah, so your Team 1 looks incredibly weak to something like Earthquake though, right? You know, like it feels overly reliant on Ponyta, Galar, and Tyrant. And then your Earthquake switch-ins are Cottony and Sunkern. So it feels like you can kind of pigeonhole and you can kind of bring like double Scarf Earthquake Mons and prevent the two the two sweepers, and then probably play around the rest of the team. But I do really, well, I'll let you respond to that first. But I do like the second team a lot more.
Yeah, I just think there are matchups where it can get out of hand very quickly, and I do believe that Sandshrew and Crabrawler have the raw physical bulk and Slowpoke. It has a lot of bulk in the back to those threats.
Yeah, but I mean, that granted, that's also what I said. Like, if I'm not saying it can't win, I'm not saying it's a horrible team. I'm just saying it's overly reliant on the matchup for Ponyta, Galar, and Tyrant, is my opinion.
Yeah. And if the matchup's not there, it doesn't. I think having a matchup fish team is one of your teams, especially for a matchup dependent tier like Little Cup. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
The other team I'm also a big fan of. I like overloading of Dark Resist with Scraggy and Carvana. And Natu is just a really solid Little Cup Mon. Larvesta can do things. We've brought Barboach to a game, and it actually did something, which was very impressive. I actually like Barboach a lot. So, a funny thing is, in Gen 9, they gave Barboach and Wishcash Stealth Rock for the first time. They gave Wishcash spikes, but they did not give Barboach spikes, and I have no idea why.
Yeah, that's a strange one. But I do feel like Barboach is actually a pretty good Gloomon for like matchups like Growlithe, Hisui, and whatnot. Like,
yeah, it's a very solid Mon.
Yeah, and it brings a defensive typing to the team that the team really needs.
And Voltorb is just excellent speed control. It gets light screen, not reflect, but light screen is enough to slow down some special attackers. Chinchou, which we faced this past week.
And this past week, I remember Reg brought a teleport Voltorb, which was very cool to prevent a Chinchou from stuffing it.
Yes, that I really liked that set.
Yeah, that was really cool. I appreciated that. Cool. All right, let's get down to black and white.
Do you want to just do black and white last, since I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about?
Okay, yeah. Let's do Sun and Moon real quick then.
Yeah, Sun and Moon is... So this one, I am not as much... My knowledge of Sun and Moon is pretty there, but, in some ways not. We've done it enough times. But the Team 1 is just, a generic sort of offense with some fast pivots with Infernape, Lando T, Rotom Wash, Zeke, Kyurem Black, which is a pretty good either nuclear win con or nuclear breaker or a good win con with the Z Hail set. I know we had that on one of our on just our Usum team. We were on a team together in like season 3.
Yeah, it looks easy to pilot. So like if you have somebody who's not good at Sun and Moon, it looks like you can throw this team to somebody, and even if they've never played Sun and Moon before, they could play it.
And Absol is a shockingly decent pursuit mon. And Seviper is there because it was like by far the best pointer. Just because it has ridiculously good coverage for no apparent reason, and its offenses are kind of like okay.
Yeah.
The second team is a little weirder, but I do really like this team as well. This one, Cyber wanted a Mega Lopunny, so we went with that, and then we went with Celesteela and Nidoking to sort of round out a core. And then we also add Tapu Fini, which is a good terrain setter for us for Lopunny, so it doesn't get like scald burned or anything. And then Cyber wanted another Mon with removal to not put the full pressure on Feeney, and we also needed speed control. And we also needed another ground resist. We needed a lot of things, and Superior provided like all of them. And so Superior on a terrain team seems a little a Mystic terrain team seems a little disingenuous because Glare is kind of what Superior does. But having that extra move slot, not being forced to run Glare every week is fine, because Superior can just slot in Defog or Sub or Leech Seed. And
I don't.
Just so good with Leaf Storm, Dragon Pulse, Hidden Power.
Yeah, with hidden power and whatnot, and I think having it with terrain is not too bad, because like Glare obviously is very good, but you can just spam knock with it instead. You know, honestly, sometimes spamming knock might be better in matchups, and then you're not tempted to spam Glare as much. You only do it when you really need to.
And then the last three, Charizard maybe should have been our Z captain. We debated that one for a while, but Charizard and Miracle. Celesteela has the can use its Z to like get a beast boost, like sweep with Autotomize. I liked the Z on Barbaracle because after a Shell Smash, Rocky MZ pretty much.
Yeah.
But Charizard had a case. Charizard at 3 points with the quality of our Defogger. Pass up.
Yeah, I like Z-Barb. I think you made the right choice, personally.
And Spiritomb is, again, just low-tier Mon with Pursuit, but this time with a fighting immunity.
Very true. Cool. All right, let's get into Black and White, because I want to hear, first, before we get into your Black and White teams, I want to hear about your opinion on Black and White as a draft tier in general.
All right, so my first experience with Black and White was a tournament. Well, Black and White draft was like a tournament style where each pool, you had like, I think 8 people in the pool, and then you had sort of group play and then a playoff bracket. And weirdly, all 4 rain teams reached like the final 8. Shocking, I know.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah. So my team was like Politoed, Ferrothorn, Tentacruel. I was a little innovative. I didn't have a Thun-DT. I had Raikou instead.
Well.
And to make up for the lack of an electric immunity, I had Flygon, so I had Rain with a Dragon. And then Gyarados, and then my low tier backup was Misdreavus and Volbeat.
Your life must have been so hard.
Yeah, it was so I lost my only loss was in the finals, and it was to like a hard anti-rain team, which was definitely in that meta what you wanted to take.
Yeah, which, like, for anybody who's watching and doesn't already know this, we banned rain. We banned drizzle in our Black and White because it's just unreasonable.
Yeah, interestingly, we had the weather abilities. They're allowed if you just set it yourself, which except for Sand Rush, because we just went off the OU clauses, and apparently Shaded had tiered with this in mind. So I took some inspiration for that with the second team. The first team, Quillfish having Swift Swim, was something that I did not think about at all.
Yeah. I wish Quillfish had the super-powered explosion still. Because a Swift Swim Quillfish that you can just trade off with a boom can be really fun.
Yeah, the main takeaway I had from doing this was there were a lot of scary threats. So even rain. First of all, I made the case that we could keep rain legal. I saw kind of some of the ways people counter my rain team, either bringing like Sunny Day or just having sand. The fact that none of them worked was really the reason I was okay with banning rain. It was like, if you're bringing like Scarf Politoed every week, yeah, those strategies are going to work, but if you just have like Protect Encore Politoed,
yeah,
the opponent is just screwed. That also had gems, so that was a significantly more offensive meta. They had gem captains, where you could have 2 gem captains, but only bring 1 gem per match. Mine were Raikou and Gyarados. So that led to some sweeps for Ladder.
Yeah. And again, for those watching, we banned gems. I was largely in favor of banning gems for the sake of dragons, because I think dragons are overpowered in the meta, and I think it's hard to get a steel type that can check dragons, especially if you look at like Team Liquidation, Team 2, they got the double drag team. And so if you have a dragon with a fire gem, or a dragon with a ground gem, or whatever that dragon needs to get through your one steel type on your team, like all of a sudden they can just outrage through the rest, you know?
Yeah. And that is why I feel like one of the misconceptions that when I was hearing your interview with Daddy that you guys seemed to have was that you're supposed to check dragons defensive. The key is you do not care about checking them defensively basically at all. Like, a steel type that can exploit outrage, you definitely need. But, like, your steel type is only switching in dragon once, if that. The way to beat dragons in Gen 5 is just to out-offense them. Like, and you can see that from both my teams have some really, really fast threats that outspeed all of the dragons. That was a big reason why I voted to ban Latias, was just because it's too fast.
Absolutely.
Too reasonably. So, like, basically anything higher than 102 base speed will outspeed every dragon in this format. And as long as you have a competent enough special attack stat, you should be able to find, like, even Rapidash and like Electrode can do their fair share in checking some of the dragons. Now that's not the case for like something like a Hydreigon or something like a Kyurem or a Kyurem Black, but the faster mons can also do other things to mostly statusing. But yeah, that was my main philosophy when I was going around about checking the dragons, especially with my second team.
And can you talk more about your team one, a little bit of the sand stall?
Oh, this is more of a sand offense team.
Really? You see it as sand offense?
Yes, this team. So when I was absolutely screwed with these drafts, the way the pick order went out, because I had the 4th pick in both drafts. Which, because in my opinion, the best 2 mons were Keldeo, then Garchomp. Then I actually believe, we'll get to what I believe the 3rd mon is later. But then I figured those 2 mons would go, and then as long as a T-Tar fell to me in one of the drafts, I thought I would be safe, because then I'd just make a T-Tar offense team. And then the other one, my plan was just to take Starmie, because it's the best hazard removal. And I would draft a team sort of based around that.
Honestly, so I would draft a Starmie, not even for, like, I would draft Starmie and not bring Rapid Spin a single time, just because it's so good offensively against like such an offensive meta.
Yeah, I do think Starmie at 4th overall might have rose some eyebrows, but I truly believe it was worth it. I did not want to build around Landorus T. I think Landorus T is super overrated in Gen 5 at 18 points.
Yep.
I do not think it's the best mon at all.
I don't blame your Starmie pick at all. I'm a huge Starmie stan, especially as a Gen 3er. I'm a huge Starmie stan.
But yeah.
Offensive star goes crazy.
So my team won. I benefited from what I believed was a little bit of a choke by Team Liquidation taking Reuniclus round 1. So I got T-Tar. Now, I know they weren't looking for T-Tar. They needed Hippo for their team. But Reuniclus was not the Magic Guard mon I wanted. I wanted Alakazam. Because going through, I had faced both Alakazam and Reuniclus a couple times in that tournament. Alakazam is much harder to check and draft than Reuniclus is. Alakazam, there is tech to deal with it, but Sash Zam, basically Reuniclus and Alakazam can more do what it does in OU and draft and be fine and just change up his coverage. Reuniclus has to get a lot more creative. there's going to be a lot more taunts, encores, banded pursuits, and just everything aimed at it because it draws so much attention. And so I thought that Alakazam was just the better pick for the team. And then my second pick was Excadrill, simply because Sand Force, Rapid Spin, Steel type.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way I chose to round out this team was I wanted spikes and I wanted another ground resist. My greatest regret with this team was choosing to draft Tangrowth when Amoonguss would have just done the... I could have drafted Quillfish and Amoonguss. I never would have been able to bring both to the same game, but Amoonguss is just better than Tangrowth and they were the same price. And I neglected to realize that Misdreavus and Zapdos are kind of just good enough as ground resists.
That's
Misdreavus
funny.
on Sand is a little worse, but... Oh, go ahead.
Well, can I ask you why you like Amoonguss on the team so much more than Tangrowth when like sleep is banned and whatnot?
Because I did the Fire Blast calcs. Week 1, I was playing the opposing Tyranitar Tangrowth team, my Tyranitar Tangrowth team, and I looked at how much special attack I needed to hit KO Spadef Tangrowth with a, like, barely invested Tyranitar Fire Blast, and the amount impressed me.
I see.
Tangrowth is still very good, and for this team, I do appreciate the job it does. It's just... The special defense is an issue.
Yeah, especially without the assault vest. I see.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Tangrowth's offensive capabilities more than Amoonguss's, because Tangrowth actually has like kind of sleeper offensive stats. Like people don't expect it, but like if you bring offensive Tangrowth, it can actually kind of be a little bit strong.
And getting knockoff is also... Misdreavus was the mon that I was absolutely gung-ho. I wanted it on like both Gen 5 teams if I could fit it. I couldn't fit it on the second one. Misdreavus is so good in Gen 5, and it's so terrible in every gen after it. And it's for one reason, and that reason is knockoff is 20 base power in this gen.
Yeah, and it's the first one that has the Eviolite as well.
Yeah. So Misdreavus is super, super good this gen. It just does... It spreads status with like Toxic and Will-O-Wisp. It can Pain Split to get its health full, which mitigates the sand somewhat. It's a very good just taunt bot. And it also is one of the better spin blockers of the ghost types because it will actually take a couple of hits.
It actually did really well in Gen 5 VGC as well, for the reasons that you're saying. You know, like knockoff wasn't as big of a thing, and it was a really good Trick Room mon there.
And then my last 2 mons for Team 1, it basically came down to, it was between Electrode and Zapdos, or Thundy T and Zebstrika. And it came down to a few things. The Electrode versus Zebstrika really wasn't the issue. Electrode was like obviously better in every single way, except for Zebstrika being an additional electric immunity. But Electrode speed is just so much faster. So it was really just a debate between Zapdos and Thundy, because I just wanted a fast electric in that last spot just for some additional speed. And the big differences between Zapdos and Thundy is the much stronger breaker, but Zapdos has a much better defensive profile because of Roost, and on Sand, that was a big factor. Biggest factor, honestly, for me was I hate Focus Blast. And Heat Wave is just a much better coverage. So I figured offensively I liked Zapdos better. Because I think mons that can run electric, fire, ice coverage always, not having to choose a hidden power between one of the two, that is a very, very useful.
King Rock, I think we just lost you.
Oh, hello?
I missed you for about 2 or 3 seconds.
Oh, what was the last thing you heard?
It was after the Zapdos thing with the Heat Wave. You said it was after the Focus Blast thing. Pick up from there.
Yeah, I just chose Heatwave because it's better. I
Right.
chose Zapdos because Heatwave is a much better move, because Roost gives Zapdos a lot more longevity,
Yep.
and
Oh,
it's
we
more
heard
of a
that one too.
balanced.
Yeah.
It's more of a balanced offensive team rather than just strictly offense, and I just thought Zapdos was a better fit.
I was thinking that the play style you guys were gonna go for was setting hazards and then going for sand plus hazards and then probably spamming a lot of protect was my suspicion. And then going for like Zam sweeps at the end.
Yeah, and that's basically what it does. But we also the throwing around some stuff with Excadrill and T-Tar are just my idea. One of my big ideas behind the team was Tyranitar and Excadrill combined are excellent physical breakers, and then we have a bunch of special offense after that with Zapdos, Electric, Alakazam, Tangrowth.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. I don't want to share any secrets, but Chlorophyll Tangrowth could also be cool, right?
Yeah, that was again. I didn't know that until the second team.
Yeah, yeah, because you can manual Sunny Day with it, and then Solar Beam plus Hidden Powered Ice maybe can take some lives, can take some names.
All right. So yeah, that's my explanation of Team 1. Team 2 is one I'm actually I really really like the second team. I don't know if I like it as much or about the same as the first one. I went in wanting a team that was like a really solid sand offensive team once I got the T-Tar.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I drafted that team, I'm like, all right, we need a team that just destroys Keldeo. We need a team that is so good into Keldeo that they don't even want to bring it. So, do you mind if I swear in this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this team's code name in our server is "Fuck You, Keldeo." that is the team's name, and so I originally going into this team was, first of all, Starmie was the obvious first pick. Resists both Keldeo stabs, threatens it immediately with Psychic. That was what I wanted to build the team around. Then I got Skarmory because Skarmory is just might be the best steel type. I mean, there's cases for others, but its defensive profile is just so, especially because of Roost. It's one of the only steals that can like check a dragon more than once. So what my original direction with this team is I wanted to do the double dragon team, kind of that Team Liquidation has, kind of similar to that, except the mons I was going for were Hydreigon and Kyurem Black. But both of them went in round 3 for some reason, and I got a mon that I had no idea would fall to me in round 3, and I had to completely remake the team because I view the third best Pokemon in Black-White Draft as Salamence.
Wow. Okay, and we saw the power of it this week in your game in the weekly recap, right?
Salamence is I think Salamence is the greatest single win con threat in all of Black-White. In one turn, be it DD or just outraging with a Choice Scarf Moxie, it can single-handedly win the game on it. And what puts it over the other ones for me is it's much faster than Dragonite, and it has Dragon Dance over Garchomp. And I think if Salamence wasn't weak to rocks, it would probably be consensus better.
And the Moxie as well. Like Intimidate is nice if you're going for a DD set, but like the Moxie on a Scarf set just gets out of hand really quickly.
Like I said, that set, the Scarf Moxie, which I brought this week, and DD, both sets can in one turn basically end the game. But because I took Salamence, now my electric matchup was sort of in hell. Because my idea was Hydreigon and Kyurem Black would be able to handle electrics, but I took Salamence, and that probably meant I was only getting one dragon, and so I decided what would be my other, a pseudo-dragon. And by pseudo-dragon, I mean fast, ridiculously strong mon. And I looked at the board and I saw Terrakion. But before I took the Terrakion, I needed something to sort of check the electrics, and my decision there was Jolteon. Because for that, it was between Jolteon and Raikou. Raikou is very interesting in Gen 5 because of its Aura Sphere sets. Because you can get away with Rash a lot more often than you think, the speed tiers in Gen 5.
Right.
I chose Jolteon because I wanted a month faster than Starmie to just have even more speed control. Because part of how I planned on dealing with like Dragon Spam team, like Keldeo, and just fast mons in general is this is actually reminiscent of some of my better Gen 9 teams and some of my in that I would draft when I played Gen 9 Natdex Terra, one of my more successful seasons in such a format, I had like 6 mons above base 100 speed. And so that way, like, scary stuff like Chiyu and Urshifu single could basically never touch the field without a choice scarf.
And you even got your Lycanroc Dusk in the form of Terrakion.
Yes.
It's literally the same mon.
Yeah. So the goal of this like first 5 mon core is just to outrun and outgun any other offense. And if they use a slower breaker, they do have the option of running max HP, but they risk me also doing that. And they can do what Cam did and try and take advantage of my speed using a scarfed Adamant Kieran Black, but I had anticipated that and put a scarf on my Salamence.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, I'll actually have to hop off in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to ask you 2 more questions, more about the draft board in general. What do you think is the best team that's not yours and the worst team?
All right, so I'm gonna stick with Gen 5 for now. I'm sorry I took so long talking about Gen 5.
No, that is okay. I have about 3 to 5 minutes left, let's say.
All right.
So go ahead.
Best team, in my opinion, is Pony Island Pelipper's Team 1. I think Keldeo Salamence already, that's 2 of the best mons in the entire format. Ferrothorn Salamence's 4x weakness stack is the main reason why I was insistent on finding mons that could run Fire, Ice, Electric on the same set, is because of those 3. And then you have Azelf, another fast offensive mon. Donphan, which has Ice Shard to help check the dragons. And then Skuntank, which can Pursuit Trap. And then the last 2 mons I don't really care about nearly as much. But that team I really love.
I think the Rotom Frost is a little bit of a sleeper pick too. Like like if you're accurate with blizzards, which is like a big if, Rotom Frost is saucy. And we didn't see any snow teams, unfortunately, but like an Abomasnow Rotom Frost would have gone hard. I would have loved that.
All right. So teams I don't like as much, I will point out I'm going to go after the other 2 sand teams very quickly. So Chicago Outlaws team, again, has the Reuniclus over Alakazam, which I don't love. Infernape and Thundy-T, as I said, I debated Thundy-T, but that core in and of itself is very weak to sand. And that team really could have used a Mungus to patch that up rather than Tangrowth, but they also took Tang. But then, the team I really wanted to go after, there were a couple teams that I wanted to really go after, was Team Liquidation's Team 1, which played its first game last week versus A Healy, and Tago got haxed out, and I gotta say, a Reuniclus losing to Hax.
I didn't know that. I just, you're telling me now for the first time.
That Reuniclus reminds me of like Gen 1 Slowbro almost, in that it can win you basically any game, but it can also just get flinched twice and die, or get full parried a bunch of times.
It's like a Hax magnet.
Yeah. I do really like the structure of their Superman team. The problem is the only like fast cleaner mon is Arrow, and that can get worn down and die rather quickly. And again, I just don't like the idea of Team Reuniclus because I think it's a little weaker than this. And then one other team I wanted to point out was because in your last video, you and Daddy were saying the best team in the league was the Chicago Outlaws Regional Team 2.
Daddy said it. It was one of my favorites in the regional decks. I don't want to say that was my favorite team overall, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that our team faced that team week 1 with our Gloking Kirim team versus their Slowking Excalibur, and our Gloking, because they did not have a dark type, swept them with Sword Power. So I do think that team has an Achilles heel that I think them seeing week 1 probably helped them a lot going forward with that team. But there is a pretty sizable weakness there.
And that was the first one, the first highlight of this week, because I forgot to include it at during the last week.
That was a very nice set. That set may or may not define how our season goes, because that set working has made all of the heat go to my head.
So I would love to have a good Heat of the Week award, or a Heat of the Week award in the weekly wrap ups, but especially like a Heat of the Season award. So please bring the hottest text you possibly can.
Right. But yeah, other than that, I haven't really been. I'll confess, I haven't looked too much at other teams other than Gen 5 ones. My team is done, and my team, the starters, have done sort of the analysis of the other teams, already deciding which teams they want to bring each week after the draft. But just off the top of my head, those were just some teams that I thought were overrated. I don't even dislike any of them. Well, I do dislike Chicago Outlaws team. that one. If I had to pick a worse team, I would pick that one just because it's my team won.
Oh my goodness! Wow, the freaking drama! You and Daddy going head to head, saying best, and one says it's the best team, one says it's the worst. I love it.
Well, no, I meant for their black and white. And white.
Oh, okay, gosh, I was like, dang, I would have loved that dramatic. Yeah. I want to see you and Daddy fight each other IRL now. Just kidding. Cool. Well, I will wrap it up there. King Rock, thank you so much for joining me today. And next week we'll probably be back with somebody like Pez or one of the other coaches. So I will catch you all next time. Thank you, King Rock.